maybe like this. That works great. Maybe we just start. I mean, there's still people coming. As you've seen, the format is a bit different than what we're used to. So everyone just bring a chair and sit to the table or right next to the table. We're very happy to start with the first of 2 evening formats on collaboration. Very happy to have Axel Cheroulet with us. It's nice, it's about collaboration, as said, and this also changes a bit how those evening works. It will not be a strict one-directional input evening where everyone can lay back and do nothing. Axel insisted in the preparation that everyone should feel invited to interrupt whenever. I mean, if there's questions, just go. Everyone also grab a beer. It should be like an informal coming together and discussing about issues that are important or interesting to us. And this shapes the evening. So there will be the first part where Axel will talk about his or their practice. And then in the end, there will still be this room to have questions, to have discussions. Around 7, some pizzas will arrive, so we can also eat together and continue the evening. Also there, it's about collaboration. We need some people to help grab the pizza downstairs, otherwise they will not arrive. But we will manage together. Yeah, there's a couple of organizational things. In the end, there will be room for questions. There's a mic. Yara just told me it's important that it's at least closer to the people who actually talk. We will also manage to organize that. It's on collaboration, not about, it's on collaboration, the 2 evening formats. The first one is Axel, who will today talk on behalf of LaClique. And then the second one will be 019 Gent, another collective we will get to know. I will just very briefly introduce Axel because you will also start basically with the introduction or like the structure behind everything. Axel is an architect, basically, one of the founders of LaClique. You just told me it was about 20 people, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. One of the founders of LaClique, and at the same time also founder of the office, MacGyver Chevrolet, working in Zurich. This is also the reason why we know each other. They work, no, now you moved again. They started to collectively work in a space where I've been working before, and there's a group of architects also. It's the same people moved and other joined in different spaces in Zurich. There is within this group of architects, with some you collaborate, with others maybe not. So it's a lot about this collaboration and different collective forms of coming together. Axel, together with Anna, his office partner, is also teaching in Burgdorf, Hochschule Burgdorf, so he knows the environment. And they were also teaching in Munich before. And LaClique is the more open format and about the relation and the question that occur from having an office and having a collective and teaching and everything at the same time. We might learn about that today.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So enough from my side, we just
Perfect.
start.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you also, Heike, for the invitation. I'm super happy to be here with you tonight. I think we were hoping that I would not be sitting in front, but somehow I think for questions of cameras and filming, I'm still sitting somehow in front and not within everyone. But yeah, I will try tonight to present the different ways that we work and this kind of, I think we called it weaving instability, but this kind of constant mess that we are in and that we maybe also look for. Already, I think when you invited us, for me it was never so clear if you invited for the office or for LaClique or for both, so it's going to be a bit a mix of everything. And to start with, this is the list of the projects that we did with the office since we created it, so a bit less than 5 years ago. For the ones who count well, it's around 45, 50 projects. And I took the occasion of this presentation to kind of reflect a bit and to see actually what had we done in which constellation. Because it was when we started the office, I think a clear aim for us, we didn't want to work alone, but we wanted to always collaborate with other people because we thought it's a interesting mode of work. And it seems when I did this diagram that it is maybe we at least are true to this first aim. So we see here the yellow lines, the MSA is like our office, MacGyver Chevrolet. The pink lines LaClique, so the project that we do as our collective, LaClique. And the green or cyan lines is collaborations that we do. I mean, architects always collaborate, but they're not only as you work with a HLKS planner or a landscape architect, but really collaboration with other offices in a kind of flat hierarchy, let's say. And maybe to situate shortly, so our office, Chevrolet, we are 8 at the moment. Anna and I founded it 4 years ago, almost 5. And it's, let's say, maybe a traditional office in the sense that it's a GmbH or SARL. We have a main office in Zurich, a small office in Lausanne, and we used to have one in Neuchâtel, but it's a bit like in Klammern now. And we are this small-scale 8-people office. And LaClique is this collective where you said when we created we were 20 people, now at the moment we are 14. That actually was created exactly at the same moment as we created our office, or within a few months. And we are 14 people who all studied architecture, but now a few are still architects, but some became artists, illustrators, are more into Städtebau or landscaping or researchers. So like somehow the profiles got a bit diversified along the way. And the collaboration here, we just kind of looked back at the collaboration we made and kind of the main people we enjoy to work with, but this kind of constellation that somehow also organically gets created or happens. The idea also, as you said, Stefan, is really that you are really invited to ask questions along the way, that I know it's always difficult to create this exchange, but hopefully it will not be only me talking until the pizza arrives and then you dare to ask questions. But I will start, I think, with the project. Somehow in this computer the S jumped a line, but the project that started LaClique. So it was 2020, end of 2019. We all met actually studying at EPFL. A lot of us graduated then from the ETH, but we all the members of LaClique somehow were at some point at EPFL. And it was maybe 2 or 3 years after graduation when I think you will reach this point, or maybe you've already reached this point and that's why you decided to go back to the studies. But we were a bit bored of working in offices, or at least there were many things in the offices in which we were working that we thought we could do differently or were hoping to do differently. So we applied there was this call for project for Manifesta in Marseille, this art biennale. And we applied saying we would want to build a small pavilion, a speaker's corner, like this reference in London, this very simple structure that allows you to be a little bit higher up and suddenly get a bit of a higher position to express your position. We teamed up with associations in Marseille that work in empowering voices that usually are tuned down, so people with migrant backgrounds or people with bodily handicaps or things like this. And we made a proposal and were selected. And at this point, we're just this bunch of friends who wanted to do things differently. But since we got selected for Manifesta, we said we create a collective and we'll build somehow a little pavilion. So that was the model we built on the roof of our old atelier, kind of scaled up of the reference, the speaker's corner. And we started working. We had never worked in such a big group. We were 20 people. We were somehow super naive, but we started a bit like this, like making models, spending actually kind of workshop days. Since we're still all working in offices next to it, we had to kind of find 1 day, 2 days in the weekend always to meet and develop the project. Starting to come with a drawing, a plan, understanding, like we wanted to build it since the beginning ourselves, but somehow we also needed parts help for the Schlosser, understanding it was too expensive, that then realizing the struggle that it is to find money when you work for cultural events, like an art biennale, but somehow pushing through, bringing things every day a bit closer to the reality, making one-to-one mock-ups also in our atelier, and yeah, getting closer to the construction. COVID hit, everything closes down, but somehow Manifesta still happened, and we somehow were able to push through. And I think we have a little film of this first moment of coming together, which was so this kind of very fresh, we're this young collective, we had just worked together for 3 months, and we arrive in Marseille, and we have like 2 days to build a structure. What we don't show here is that in the morning the truck could not arrive because all the cars were parked on the way, so we had to kind of, with the people from Marseille, kind of open the windows of the car and push them away. That's what you can do in Marseille and not in Luzern. And as you can see, we had not much construction experience. So that was this kind of first collective experience, and this moment also where we realized we're 20 people in the collective, but somehow the development of this project were maybe 6 heavily involved. And then suddenly, when we had to mount it, the 20 people came to Marseille together, and were able to mount it together in 2 days. And we realized actually when we are a lot of people, we can do a lot of things. I mean, easy to say, but somehow when you see it happening, it's quite satisfying. So this was this first experience as LaClique. And then I continue with another kind of collaboration. I will kind of take you through different forms of collaboration that we have also in our everyday. This is a project we did then this time with our office. And this is more this kind of one-to-one collaboration, or like office and office collaboration. It was a competition we did for a lighthouse in Geneva. That was now 2 or 3 years ago. And we did it with our friends from Cortez et Matza, which is this office based in Brussels. And so it is this Société Nautique de Genève, so the Geneva Yacht Club, who wanted a new lighthouse. So that was kind of what we thought of the Geneva Yacht Club. So that's Anna and I renting a boat to take photos of the site. But actually, the Geneva Yacht Club is a bit more like that. They organize the Boulder, which is the biggest lake regatta in the world. Quite an insane race where there are often accidents because the weather on the Lake Léman, Lake Geneva, is quite intense. And basically what they wanted, it was a nice competition program. They wanted a kind of archive or a kind of small foundation for the building, a big raised cabin where they can see the kind of 1,000 boats during the race, a light, because otherwise it's not a lighthouse, and a lot of flags to be able to direct the race with their flags. And so we started by sending to Cortez et Matza this reference from Fischli Weiss, this photo series called Équilibre, where the Swiss artist duo Fischli Weiss did always they build this kind of structure or sculptures out of everyday objects, and they take a photo, and you never know if the object then is falling down or will fall down or somehow is standing. And we thought it's, I don't know, we always somehow are fascinated by this series, and we also thought it was quite fitting to this program that just required a few elements, but always placed at a specific position to perform what they had to perform. So we sent this reference. They came back with the first 3D model of trying, where you see the cabin all the way on the top, a kind of crazy staircase, the foundation, a big flag. But then we started somehow this ping pong. We sent something back, somehow recomposing the same elements. We had a Zoom discussion. They were on holidays in Bari. They were obviously happier than us. Then they sent something back, and somehow we started this kind of ping pong with actually fairly little communication, just sending things to each other, and each time reacting, understanding what they did, sometimes misunderstanding, and sometimes in an unproductive way, and sometimes actually somehow in a productive way. Starting with 3D models, jumping to very rough physical models, finding simple ways to understand notions of structure as well, with dead weight and some elements that somehow you try to pull together and also don't quite want to be together sometimes. And finishing with another kind of équilibre. These were a little ode to Geneva with a nice camembert, the sardine. Of course, you need a carandache and the little cork of the champagne, because it's a yacht club, they need champagne. But somehow that was this translation of the program diagram. It was this basement, the cabin that somehow projects itself over the lake, the light that just reaches the level it has to reach to be seen, and then for somehow everything not to fall down, the kind of system to hold the flags becomes the almost like the strings of the guitar that kind of keep everything in tension. Photo of the model. And still some kind of this moment of collaboration, also a lot of misunderstandings obviously, but also this kind of spontaneous, you're on Zoom, you start drawing on Zoom, then you want to show a reference, so you open a Google page, you show something, and then you draw on the reference, and then someone has moved the preview or like the image you were drawing on, so somehow the drawing you made doesn't make sense anymore, but somehow embracing this as a kind of way of also finding a new kind of performative way of designing. This time was also with our civil engineer. A little extra to please the yacht club, that they were very afraid of people breaking into their lighthouse. So instead of having a normal staircase, we gave them a private jet staircase, so they feel like they are on their private holidays. And then actually the cabin being the super rough element that just projects itself, and its only aim basically is to have a good view. So we added as few things as possible to be able to see through. When the lighthouse is not in use, somehow everything closes down and it becomes this super abstract object. And when it's in use, then it's this somehow like it opens up and it basically just performs what it should do. I mean, we got just the third prize, so it was a bit heartbreaking, but also for us it was a kind of very nice, it was also one of the first collaboration we did, so it was a very nice first step into this collaboration and realizing what it was bringing to us and how it was influencing actually our way of designing. I think for us the collaboration also as an office is always super important, because it's this moment where you are somehow put on this kind of flat hierarchy and you need to defend your ideas, you need to convince, but you also need to do this extra effort that you will, each time you meet, if you meet once a week, you need to kind of prepare a little presentation, you need to somehow put the forms to present your ideas to someone else, and that also offers you this kind of time that usually you would not do to put things together and organize your thoughts, which I think is super important to the design process. Here we go on drift. That's maybe the third form of collaboration. That was a summer school that we gave in Copenhagen 1.5 years ago, or 2 years ago. It's this summer school called Parapluie. If you guys are looking for summer school, it's a very cool one. I would advise to do it. And we were asked to participate into this, to lead a workshop in the summer school. And for us, it was maybe we set our aim to see how could we try to extend this idea of collaboration within more kind of academic context, or within a context where, yeah, it's not quite a school system, but it's a kind of summer school. So you are in a group with a group of students, and how could we engage, first of all, the group of students as a whole group that acts together, but also with us, that we are completely merged with them. When we got invited to do this, so it's in the Royal Academy in Copenhagen, the organizers were like, oh, we are gathering a lot of material, and we will actually give you all this material to use, and you will have to, or like, ideally it would be nice if you do reuse projects. We thought, yeah, I mean, that seems interesting. And we looked around of the site of the workshop, and we realized there was this building that you see here on the screen that was standing there. And we simply asked the organizers, what is this building that was in actually quite shabby condition, just in front of the space of the summer school. And they're like, it's a small pavilion, it's going to be demolished, don't worry about it. It will be gone, and then you can do your summer school. So we said, well, maybe instead of gathering material from somehow places around and maybe to a certain extent artificially create this reuse, can we not just work with this pavilion that's there, since it's anyway going to be demolished? And we did some more research. We found a photo of this pavilion a few years ago. What do you think this was used for? Sculpture.
For dead people till they are buried.
Yeah, very good. I'm quite impressed. Yeah, it was indeed a mausoleum. It was a mausoleum that was built 20 years before by this Danish artist, Claus Bech Nielsen, who buried himself the whole, because he was quite a famous Danish artist at the time, and so then the whole kind of fancy people of Denmark, you see in the photo on the right, there was like the king or like the prince of Denmark, they kind of paid their honor to Claus Bech Nielsen. And 1 month later, he was born again, but this time as Madame Nielsen. So somehow he had like this whole process of gender change or identity change, and he built this mausoleum for that. So when we researched and we realized this building was meant first for that, and then had been somehow donated to the school, and the school left it kind of rot slowly. We're like, oh, okay, we've got to do something with this building, there's no way. So we did 2 things. We contacted Madame Nielsen to see if she was still interested in that building, and we contacted the school, and we looked around, and we found another spot actually that was free, that was just 1 kilometer away, where the building could actually still be kept. So that's how we started. We're like, we have a simple aim. We have one building that has to be demolished, but if we move it from 1 kilometer, actually we can keep it. So that was the aim of the summer school. We have to move a building. We can either walk 1 kilometer with it, or actually if we cross the river or the canal, we can do 500 meters. So it could be a nice shortcut. A bit like if you know Fitzcarraldo, the film by Werner Herzog, where he tries to bring a ship over a mountain. This is maybe the opposite, a building over the water. We told them we would do this. And Madame Nielsen was somehow really interested in this process. She was like, okay, why not? We told her, the one thing we told her is that since it's a difficult task, the building might be somehow altered through this movement. And the movement is somehow maybe almost an excuse for this alteration. The first task we did was very simple. The organizers, or no one had the key of the building, so we had to make a hole in the building to get in. So we got in, and we did the first day, the final exhibition inside of this pavilion, because there had also been some student exhibitions. So we said, okay, we get in the building, we'll organize the last exhibition. So it's a kind of way of celebrating this kind of end of its phase, and also finding a way to get into the building was also a way for us to maybe just make this click also for the students that they're not afraid to touch the building. You have to make a hole and get in, so they are somehow, it's not sacral anymore. But then we started the second day thinking, okay, now we've got to move this building. And it was super interesting because the first few hours, and even maybe the first full day, the students started to make experiments, trying really spontaneously. But you could see that they were still very much somehow looking at us and thinking that somehow we knew how to do it. You know, they were trying something and it was obviously not working. And then they were like, yeah, okay, it doesn't work. And then they started to wait and they were like, okay, when are you going to tell us how do we move a building? And I think the second day when they realized that we also had absolutely no idea how do you move a building, I think the whole thing was about 10 to 20 tons. I think 20 tons. Then that's when it got interesting. You know, there was this maybe 1 hour of panic where the students were like, I went to Copenhagen to do a summer school and somehow we have no idea what we're doing. And then somehow this getting together and starting to get this collective intelligence and starting to work as a group. So we started making a slice in the building, and already was this kind of unexpected but fantastic moment where you see somehow the crack appearing and the building starting to separate in two. And then we maybe almost like monkeys just started to pull on the thing. And as you can see, it wasn't moving much. But also, obviously, for us also a very nice experience to simply, for a quite small building like this one, just realizing the force and the weight of architecture, a kind of very physical experience with architecture. But along the way, also a very nice moment appearing when one curve become two curves, some little gaps appearing, new spatial compositions, new entrance, new exits, and then trying again, getting all the strength together. Almost too good, almost too successful. We had not much security also, so we were a bit careful, but then finding solutions after solutions. So the first idea was like, okay, we get one corner out of the building. It will still be like a nice piece. It's going to be a nice first element. That's kind of the biggest size we think we can move in one go. We had this kind of transpalette. We spent a full day lifting the building millimeter after millimeter, making this kind of very archaic wooden construction to lift the pavilion slightly up, until we could finally put it on the wheels. That was then a very nice procession. It's also the school, if you know it, it's in a super touristic area of Copenhagen now, so there were like a lot of very confused tourists asking themselves what was happening. And there you see a second part of the building where we actually just transformed it as a boat, a little very simple ship. And I think also, might sound a bit stupid, but I think as architects it's always also as student architects, it's good to see that architecture can float by itself. And there we had Madame Nielsen, who came back and who was kind of like the captain of this ship, powered by our legs. But in a way, at the end, we succeeded to move the whole building, but in pieces, and we moved it to the new place, and made a kind of spontaneous composition of all the pieces into the new location. Also, I think things that were not quite planned, but I think the fact that Madame Nielsen followed us the whole time and that this building followed almost the same transformation as she did was a quite strong experience for the whole group.
Madame Nielsen has a total Klaus Kinski look here.
She.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. She's. I think she's highly inspired by Klaus Kinski as well. Yeah, she followed the Werner Herzog reference all the way to the end. And now we'll go back to a project we did with LaClique, gadolinium. It was a project we did when LaClique was, I think, maybe 2 years old or 2.5. So we knew already a bit more how it was working. And maybe just to give a little explanation, so now we are, I think, 14, 15. The people who left were people who basically had no time to get involved, so they realized after a while they had to pay a cotisation, like we pay every year a little bit to make LaClique survive, and they were like, well, if I cannot participate, then it's not really meaningful for me. But each time that there's a project that appears, either a project that we start ourselves or a project that we get somehow asked for, we post it in our group, and then the people who have time or availability or the will, they say yes, and somehow then it's always each time this very fluid way or very organic way of shaping a team around the project. So for each project we end up being between 4 and 8 as the core group, but always just the people who happened to want to take part and having the time. And then at this intense production moment when we have a deadline or something, then there are always like most of the collective that then comes together, and then suddenly we are again 14, 15 people to produce. And this was, I think, also a call for project in the city of Lausanne. I don't know if you know this building is La Rasud. It's this huge, it used to be the post sorting center, one of the main in Europe, Suisse romande, in the French part of Switzerland, so not at all in Europe. Not quite the same scale, I get megalomaniac. But it was a really, really big one, and it's quite a crazy building because it's next to the train station, as you can see. And it's like 7 floors underground, and this like 300-meter long building that all the people from Lausanne know very well. A lot of them pass next to it or through it every day because there's like an inside tunnel. But somehow they know it without knowing it, because you always just go through it, but you never really look at it. And there were like a lot of discussions. This building was planned for demolition to make a new fancy development. And there were starting to be movement in the city that were saying, actually, we could do better than just destroying it. And so they decided to invite a dozen of artists and collectives to kind of question the building. So we had a visit in the building, and we're quite fascinated by the insane amount of pipes that were in this building. Pipes going everywhere, and a lot of different kind of size and types of pipes, of piping system. So we took our favorite tool and we made a beam model of the whole building. And we realized also that the building used to be actually a super, like the whole ventilation system used to be a super clever system that was making the building work almost as a kind of lung, because there was a parking garage in the middle, and somehow the ventilation was helping to filtrate the air from the garage and then take the air from the office and everything. I mean, somehow it was really well thought out. But through the different refurbishment that happened through the time, they always refurbished different parts of the building, and this whole ventilation system got kind of killed. And now they couldn't fill up the garage anymore, only to half, otherwise there were too many toxic fumes, and then some offices could not be used anymore because there were also problems of bad air quality and stuff. So we thought it was a bit a pity that they had kind of destroyed this well-functioning system through the time. There was in the 7th underground this quite amazing, I guess a kind of ancestor of a monoblock. And we just started actually going through the building, starting to look at different pipes. There was also this beautiful, very much like the post, this kind of vacuum system to send messages from one end to the other of the building that we started to investigate. It was almost complete, but there were moments that were small moments where the pipes had been cut. And so we started, like you see here, Pierre, we started like playing music or putting somehow smoke in these pipes and seeing how far it could get. And through doing that, we realized actually that this piping system was not only spreading through the whole building, but was also spreading through actually a whole neighborhood. So I think the furthest one was going 2 kilometers away, but it was like, yeah, like one day we're working, like following a pipe, and we just went up, like pushed one of this grid, and we're in the middle of the train station, which the train station didn't really like, but somehow was a nice discovery. But so we thought, how can we somehow reactivate this system? And so we just kind of bricolé or basteled this kind of connection. At the end, we needed only to rebuild 50 meters of pipes to reconnect the whole system. So you see a very dirty detail. And then with this little budget we had, we bought the biggest smoke machine we could get. And we placed the smoke machine in this old soufflerie, this old monoblock. And basically we used it to spread smoke through the whole building. And so suddenly the building started to breathe again, or to have this kind of moments, different moments within the city where you had this kind of big clouds of smoke coming out of completely different parts of the building. I think the two furthest points where the smoke would come out were almost a kilometer away from each other. And there were, for us, this very simple tool to kind of question this building and question also all these invisible networks and systems that were existing within the building. And for us, it was also a super nice experience as a collective, because it was really a lot through also being these 8 people and walking through the building and discovering and almost actually there playing with the building, and through that slowly getting the project or letting the project take shape. I go then to another kind of collaboration. This is an internal to the office collaboration, I would say, which might sound a bit weird. But it's, since we had this experience with somehow Drift, or the project you saw before with the summer school or with LaClique, we were wondering if we could start or try to recreate such kind of dynamic within the office. It was last summer. I think the office was kind of the same size. We were also around 8 people. And I don't know if you know, there was this nice artist residence on the Furka Pass the last 3 years. So in this pass at 2,400 meters of altitude, there's this fancy house that you see behind me that was refurbished by OMA in the 90s, a very, very beautiful early OMA project with this Daniel Buren shutters. So basically a guy also from Neuchâtel actually, who brought a lot of artists and architects to refurbish this house. And they had this very fancy art residence for many years. It closed down, and then they had next to it a building that was actually for the staff of the hotel. And the residency, the artist residency that took place in the last 3 years was taking place in the building for the staff. But we were up there and we took this photo that somehow we really liked. You see the Daniel Buren shutters. That's obviously each of these shutters costs quite an insane amount of money. And then you see they had closed it for the season, so they just put this Absperrlatten in front, and they somehow recreate a very cheap Daniel Buren, maybe on purpose or maybe also just out of the blue. But we were quite inspired, and we stayed then in the residence, the one for the staff, and we noticed actually that there almost all of the shutters were broken. So we said, okay, would be nice actually to make some new shutters for the residency so that we take care of this little building and not just of the fancy building. And so we took it as an excuse to go for 1 week with our whole office there, and hopefully to try to do a project all together, a bit more like we do it in LaClique and less like we work usually as an office where somehow it's a maybe traditional office. Anna and I are somehow verantwortlich, or like we have responsibility, and then we've got there are architects and interns, but there's maybe more of a traditional structure. So we started making sketches all together. It was also many sketches by Ines, who was intern at the time in the office, of getting Absperrlatten and what could one do with Absperrlatten. sketches that became three-dimensional with somehow like gluing things on her sketchbook. We got from this company Valo a few, I think maybe 100 of these Absperrlatten or something that we could then bring up. And then it was actually this super nice moment because we're the 8 people from the office, and Ines and Arthur, who were both interns at the office at the time, they had kind of prepared the workshop, let's say the infrastructure of the workshop, and they had thought about what material do we need, what should we do which day and stuff, so that we can build these shutters. And so suddenly they were the boss of the office, and they were somehow the ones leading us around. And so it was a super simple project. It was just 1 week in the mountains, not working very intensively, mostly, you know, like doing nice walks, talking or meeting the other artists around. But also this moment for the office where suddenly we were maybe in another context, and where maybe also Anna and I were maybe the worst with build, or like the least talented in the construction. So somehow it was this nice moment of resetting everything at zero and sharing a nice week, also working with our hands and not being behind the computer. So you see, that was our happy moment to have a very, very cheap De Buren shutters next to the De Buren shutters. The house is not on sale anymore. It's been sold. And this very simple new addition to the Furka residency. And actually, this is already the final video, but it's a little film that we did with LaClique. That it's a few projects from LaClique, a few projects also from our office, but it's kind of this kind of every day of working with the collective. The glass on the left is once a year we do a retraite, so a kind of little weekend all together with the collective, and we always have to have one specific kind of cocktail that is linked to one project we did with the year. That's why there was this kind of smoking cocktail that year in honor of gadolinium. But all these kind of different moments of the everyday, and basically also a lot of these moments, like the car that broke down, are basically an excuse, or like it's like the problems we meet become excuse for moments of fun. You see here this table where we are drawing is also one of these dinner we have once a year where we think about the collective, and then we realized through the year that we had to find also alternatives way to discuss to make sure that everyone can express their point of view, and that just, you know, sitting and letting people like me talking for 1 hour doesn't work, and that you need to find alternative ways to make sure that somehow you get out of this kind of typical formats. There's a lot of dancing actually in LaClique. But yeah, I think it's also maybe the nice moment to say the way we started LaClique was also, I think, very much this super naive idea that it would be so nice to actually work with your friends, and that you could actually make projects just with your friends. And that's super naive, but somehow we try to make it happen, and it's been almost 5 years now, and it works, and we still have fun, you know, like that's also what we were afraid, that we would very quickly get into fights and get into kind of the slowest ping pong tournament that we did for Project the Swiss afterwards.
There are also moments of not having fun?
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and I think we realized that we started the collective because we wanted to somehow work with your friends and be able to share a beer at the end of the day and have a dinner where you laugh. And so in this moment where we're not having fun, or where sometimes there are tensions, that's what we do. We're like, okay, let's have dinner together, or let's stop working and let's drink a beer or something. And so somehow we can switch off and get back to this kind of just friends mood somehow.
So it's still stable, the collective thought of it.
Yeah, it's a stable, and it's in a way always being questioned, because there are new projects arriving. for instance, not long after we started the collective, we did this competition to do the identity of the new metro line in Lausanne, the M3, which is basically doing all the, I would say, the Ausbau of the 7 new metro station, which is a very big Auftrag for a collective, and we won it. And we were at this point, you know, super naive, and also we freaked out. We're like, we don't know how to do that. And luckily, you might have heard all this problem with the train station of Lausanne, so the project took a lot of delay. But now we finally, like since 6 months, really started to work on the project. And suddenly we find ourselves as a collective, as a kind of, the collective is, its Rechtsform is an association, but we find ourselves as an association having to do a kind of quite big scale project, bigger than most of the projects we do in our office. And so we have to also reinvent ourselves and question how do we work together with a project where somehow maybe another level of professionalism is expected. And I think this kind of questioning is also super productive for us.
There's a fantastic playfulness to every single approach that you do for every single project. Is that like always a conscious decision that you always have to have fun with the idea, or would seem that it's very easy to like drift into a very serious go-to approach?
No, I think it's a I would say it's a very conscious approach. I think we all decided to do this, but also with the office to because we wanted to have fun. So I think there are a few moments also, as you said before, like we realize we're not having fun, and then that's when we stop and we say we have to change something, because if you're not having fun, then it's not worth doing it. But I think it's also one thing that makes, for instance, a collective LaClique work, is that we don't have like huge manifesto. We don't have like 10 rules that you have to follow. We're not gonna shout at someone because I don't know, they didn't follow the ethos of the collective. But it's more that we know that we share common values, and that it's a kind of implicit understanding within each other. And I think this freedom, or this kind of lightness, and trying to not engrave things in stone, help the collective to survive and to evolve also in a fluid way.
I would like to jump in.
Yeah.
Regarding this collective that you have, but on the side you have an office. I guess the people in the collective, they also have an office on the side, some part of them. How is it when you do competition, and probably you are on the same competition that the people with who you are working on another project with the same collective? How is it, this relation? Do you talk to each other during the competition? Not about the competition?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are indeed a few other offices. There's, for instance, Charline from LaClique, who's part of Sujet Objet in Geneva. And that's true that sometimes we do competition against each other. Sometimes we do it also together. Like it's one of the offices we often collaborate with. I think somehow it's quite clear for competitions that you keep things apart and you just don't talk about what you're doing at the moment. But there's no there was never any issue with this. I think it's just somehow that there's another, or like there's a good office doing it, so you're a bit afraid of them, but at the same time you would be super happy if they win. So
then again, if one of you wins, you're probably too small to do a big thing alone, so probably collaborate anyway, right?
yeah, that could be, for instance, that's true.
I'd say I'm very, very impressed by the closed office kind of performance, which for me is exactly this intelligent playfulness. You did an in-depth analysis using tools that many of you would associate with something lame like BIM, and it broke into a super intelligent analysis of what it is, what's the essence of the building, and at the end with this purple smoke you converted it to an art performance. And when I will, talk about this evening to friends and acquaintances and the people I meet during next week, I think I will mostly talk about this one if someone asks me, what is this guys doing? So what's so special about them? And I say this very precise, intelligent approach that ends in something really playful and happy. I think that was not a question, it was a compliment.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You have to ask questions because the pizza only come in 1 minute.
Yeah, maybe this is a very good quick break. I mean, we need, I guess, 3 or 4 people going downstairs helping to bring the pizza. So we collaborate on having dinner anyway. Is there 3 volunteers? They already went? Yeah. That was silently organized. You do this very well.
That's the efficiency of Luzern.
Yeah. Perfect.
But I have a question. How are you organized? Like, it's a very practical question, because I imagine if you have 2 kind of involvements, like on the one hand your office and then the collective, how often do you see each other? Who is doing what? Is it really like this, everyone is doing everything, or is it, it would be interesting.
It's
or how, I mean, you do your office, I mean, that is also like a 24/7 job, no?
No, it's a very, very good question. And we often ask ourselves the question because we haven't found yet the magic formula, I would say. Because every day is like the office, the collective, and the teaching. First of all, I think we are learning to be able to say no, which we were very bad at to start with, but somehow that's maybe the main key to be able to focus on things. But I would say in our everyday, the office is usually, I would still say, 50 to 60% of our time. And teaching is often 1 to 2 days a week. And then the collective, it depends a lot on the phase of the projects. For instance, now with this metro project that really picks up, it also starts to be 1 day a week always. But then we actually like to work in this kind of workshop ways. So ideally with the projects that are maybe that have maybe a shorter time span, because often these are projects that get realized within 6 months or a year. We like to do 3 times or 4 or 5 times, 1 weekend intense, and then we really work on it. And then it's also somehow a qualitative moment because you are 48 or 72 hours together, and so that means you have all the evenings, all these kind of off moments where you're also together. So these kind of different temporalities, I think they work quite well. And they're nice also because they take you out of the everyday of the office or of the semester, I would say. But it's a big question we are always asking ourselves, and also with the collective. And the collective, since now there's, the simple thing, I think we not enough talk about it, the question of money. The collective starts to be financially viable. And so it's also the moment where we can finally start to also pay, because there were always people who took this kind of not so nice tasks of, like doing the accounting or like, I don't know, organizing when we do events, or when we gather, really make sure that they work and stuff. And for a long moment, or for a few years, let's say, just because they were motivated. But now we can start with this discussion to be like, this person who always does the accounting, actually, we can have a budget for this person, and we can start to, I would not say yet professionalize, but at least have a starting of professionalizing some of these, which are mostly actually this caring, this notion of care, actually, this task of care. Yeah.
And working in this collective, do you think it's only possible in a certain span of life? Like, I think when you build up an office, it has a much longer, maybe, life perspective. Maybe you want to build up something, and then you want to become bigger. And I don't know, I think there's a different maybe idea behind building up an office, whereas like with the collective, it somehow is an idealistic form or format. But I think you can only do it, I don't know, if you live in a certain constellation. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's also a very good question. Maybe my answer would be twofold. I think on one side is what I explained before, that we try to not overthink it. So I think we also maybe voluntarily avoid to think about, but what's going to happen in 5 years, or like, when everyone starts to have a family or something. But at the same time, of course, one of our great example and reference for us was always Assemble from London. And that through the year we got to know them also quite well, some of them. And it was a big question for them. They were telling us when suddenly they reached this age of like maybe 35 or 40, and more start to have a family, and they suddenly have maybe other needs in their life, or like financial security and things like this. And I think it's also the moment where maybe they had to ask themselves these questions that they didn't want to ask themselves before. And so it might be a point where it's going to also come for us. I think the difference that we have with Assemble is that Assemble has been since the beginning much more organized in the way that they have an incredible structure also in terms of how do they share the task, how do they split the task, split the money and everything. They are really an example in this, and we are in a way much more informal, I would say. I think they reached earlier another level of professionalism, where for us LaClique stays always a kind of side fun business, when for Assemble quite quickly it became their main job for I would say 3 or 4 members of them. Yeah. But maybe the fact that it stays the side will also allow it to last for a bit longer. Just for the mood. It's super nice.
How do you make sure with so many members in the group that you end up with a clear concept?
It's not always, on one side it's not always super important to have a clear concept for the collective, but also I think it's something that is super good for us in the office, is that it teaches you to let go, and indeed there are like always these teams that are created that are between 4 and 8 people, and sometimes you're in it. So when you're in it, of course you can have a kind of influence on the way the project goes, but sometimes you're not in it, or you're on the side of it, you're maybe the 9th, or just on the edge of it. And then you just have to let go, and sometimes the members present a project and you don't understand it, and you have to be like, just cool, and go with it. And I think this is, at least for me, I cannot talk about the other members, but at least for me, it's something that was really good learning experience, and also liberating in the everyday, to be able to also to have confidence, because even I think that's what I learned through that, is that even the projects where maybe I didn't understand the idea to start with, then when they were realized, they were amazing. So to trust, maybe I don't understand what you are trying to do, but I know it's going to be good. And I think this is, it makes your life easier when you're able to do that. Yeah.
I think this is one of the very important messages of today for me. It is connected with what you said before, of developing a language and defend your ideas. I think this is very interesting, because it's a bit of a contrast. On one hand side you have to let go, but you also have to become clear, what do I actually want? And I guess those both poles make, making architecture a bit more healthy. And that sounds very good. This for me personally is also almost disconnected to the organizational form. It's just a very healthy relation to the things we do, like 24/7. So it's really like letting go, but also being clear, what do I want, what do I expect from a project. And I think this is something that came through quite well during all the projects, because for me, I mean, it was a lot about fun, also this notion that it's like, it's only worth doing it if it's fun, but you've been very clear about defending your ideas and exposing yourself, and I think this is also very valuable, and in a hierarchical way of working, sometimes you don't have to be that clear because people just listen, and this is very
Yeah, I think it's very true. I think that's what we take, maybe the main thing we take within the office. By the way, I think people should start the pizzas because they're warm, but it's really to, it's in this discussion to not just be like ahead of an office and just say, we do it like this. But to try to instigate these discussions also within an office structure. Oh, they are not geschnitten, oder?
No, we need the collective intelligence too.
Generation tired. All those few guys were not tired because they're here, but they all leaving. To hear that there are people who just work their asses off in the office, plus they do a collective, and it's we're not talking about work-life balance. I started shivering when you work like that.
To take the pizza with you.
Yeah, please do.
The next lecture will be on the work. About young people.
As long as it makes sense.